They're not telling you this on the news, but your money is already under attack. While the world holds its breath over the threat of World War III, the financial system is quietly shifting beneath your feet. And if you're not 2 steps ahead, you're going to pay the price, not later, but very soon. This video isn't about fear, it's about preparation. Because history shows that every major crisis creates 2 types of people: those who panic and those who build wealth quietly while the rest freeze. You don't need to be rich to protect your future, but you do need to understand what's coming and how to move. So if you want to keep your money safe and maybe even grow it, while the world spirals into uncertainty, listen closely, because once this wave hits, you'll either ride it or drown. There comes a moment when silence feels irresponsible, and for many seasoned investors, this is that moment. The markets are shaking, headlines are screaming, and fear is starting to smell like 2008 all over again. But here's the truth, most won't tell you. Times like these aren't the time to hide, they're the time to think clearly. When panic hits, the difference between chaos and control is one thing: guidance. And that's exactly why this message is different from the usual money talk. You see, we're not just talking about another dip in the stock market. This is about the bigger picture, the potential collision between war and economy, the tremors of global unrest, and how they echo straight into your bank account. While the world debates politics and borders, your portfolio is already reacting. Your money doesn't wait for peace treaties, it follows momentum, fear, and speculation. That's why financial wisdom isn't optional right now, it's survival. In every financial storm, there's always someone calmly building a bigger boat. The goal isn't to pretend everything's fine, it's to understand how to make money and preserve it even while the thunder rolls. It's knowing the power of financial freedom, and that doesn't come from blind optimism. It comes from preparation, from strategy, from staying 2 steps ahead, and most importantly, it comes from mentors who've been through worse and came out wealthier. Now, here's something people rarely admit. Most investors only act after the damage is done. But if you're here now, listening while the warning lights are still flashing, you've already proven you're different. You're not just interested in online business and investment strategy for the good times. You want to thrive when the game gets hard. That mindset alone puts you in the top 10%. But hold that thought, because before you make your next move, you need context. And to get that, we've got to look back at the past. Because as much as this feels new, it's not the first time the world seemed on the brink of collapse. Every time the world trembles, people rush to declare the end of the market. But history disagrees, loudly. Think back to Pearl Harbor, a day that shattered American confidence. The market dropped hard, yes, but in less than a year, it had regained much of its ground. The same happened after the Cuban Missile Crisis, 9/11, the 2008 crash, and even the COVID meltdown. The pain was real, but so was the recovery. Why? Because panic is temporary, value isn't. Markets are emotional creatures. They react with knee-jerk intensity when war breaks out, economies stall, or banks collapse. But look deeper, and a pattern emerges. Volatility spikes, fear dominates, and then slowly, rationality returns. After 9/11, the Dow Jones closed for a week. When it reopened, it fell. But by the next year, it had climbed again. These rebounds aren't miracles. They're the natural result of fundamentals reasserting themselves. Take the 2022 Russia-Ukraine war. It shook energy prices, rattled Europe, and triggered headlines predicting a global meltdown. But 6 months later, the S&P 500 had begun to recover. Investors who stayed the course were rewarded. Those who sold out in fear locked in their losses. That's the pattern. Fear drives exits. Patience drives profits. Understanding this cycle is the foundation of any serious long-term investing approach. It's tempting to believe that this time is different. But seasoned investors know that phrase is dangerous. Sure, every crisis has its unique fingerprint, but the market's muscle memory remains the same. Drop, adjust, climb. And while the dips feel catastrophic in real time, they often turn out to be some of the greatest make-money opportunities in hindsight, but only for those who stayed in the game. And here's where it gets interesting. Fear doesn't just crash markets, it creates illusions. illusions that the future is doomed, that cash is king, and that staying out is safer. But is it really? Or is it just the first step to missing the real wealth surge that comes once the dust settles? The market hates uncertainty more than it hates bad news. That might sound strange, but it's true. When outcomes are unclear, like during sudden conflicts or unexpected elections, investors panic. But once the path becomes more visible, even if it's a rough road, the market starts to stabilize. Because markets can price in bad news. What they can't handle is guessing games. Clarity, even grim clarity, often sparks rallies. This is why investors who panic sell during the early days of a crisis usually regret it. They're reacting to the unknown, not the reality. And ironically, by the time reality is understood, the rebound has already begun. Take COVID, for example. The market tanked in March 2020, panic everywhere. But once lockdowns became the norm and stimulus plans rolled out, stocks took off. Not after things got better, but as soon as people understood what normal looked like. Fear is a liar. It tells you to run when you should sit still. It whispers that your money's not safe, that cashing out is the smart move. But the truth? Some of the biggest gains happen in the aftermath of the biggest drops. Fear blinds investors to this simple fact. That's why the best investment strategy isn't about reacting. It's about preparing, having a plan before the storm hits. Here's what most people miss. Investing is less about numbers and more about emotions. The math works, but only if the mind doesn't get in the way. The biggest threat to your financial freedom isn't the stock market. It's your own fear. That's why seasoned investors treat downturns as clearance sales, not warnings. They buy when others sell because they trust the process more than their panic. But what if you could remove emotion from the equation altogether? What if there was a method to invest that didn't rely on perfect timing or gut feelings? Turns out there is, and that brings us to the heart of the matter. How the psychology of market timing traps most investors into losing more than they ever gain. Imagine three friends, Tiffany, Brittany, and Sarah. Tiffany's the procrastinator. She never invests at all. Brittany's the genius timer. She buys at every bottom, sells at every top. And Sarah? Sarah just invests a fixed amount every month, rain or shine. Decades later, guess who's ahead? Surprisingly, it's not Brittany with her perfect timing. It's Sarah with her steady rhythm. That's the magic of dollar cost averaging. Brittany's strategy sounds perfect, but it's a fantasy. No one times the market perfectly. Even professional hedge fund managers get it wrong. And when they do, they lose big. But Sarah? She takes emotion out of the game. She buys during crashes, rallies, and plateaus without overthinking it. Her investments compound steadily because she never misses out on the market's best days or falls victim to its worst. That's why market recovery belongs to the consistent, not the clever. Sarah's results are proof that strategy beats timing. It's not about being a genius, it's about being disciplined. Think about your own habits. Are you trying to outsmart the market, or are you building a system that wins by default? Because in the end, consistency compounds faster than luck. And the beauty of this approach is that anyone can do it. You don't need to pick the next Amazon or time the next crash. You just need to start. Set up automatic contributions. Use platforms like Fidelity, Vanguard, or M1 Finance. Choose broad-based ETFs like VOO or QQQ, and let time do the heavy lifting. Sarah didn't need a crystal ball, just commitment. Still not convinced? Let's look at what happens when you try to outsmart the market and fail. Because the damage isn't just missing out on gains, it's missing out on the specific days that define your entire return. Here's a stat that shocks even experienced investors. If you missed just the 10 best trading days in the last 20 years, your total return would be cut in half. That's not a typo, half. And the kicker? Those best days usually happen right after the worst ones. That means if you sell during a crash, odds are you'll miss the rebound that makes up for the loss. Timing the market sounds smart, but it's really a game of roulette. The risk of missing out is far greater than the potential reward of dodging a dip. That's why long-term investors like Warren Buffett never panic sell. They understand that staying invested is the only way to catch those legendary bounce back days. And they don't just talk about it, they live it. Let's make it practical. Say you had $10,000 in the S&P 500. If you stayed fully invested over 20 years, you might turn that into $60,000. But if you miss the top 20 days, that number could drop below $20,000. The market rewards patience, not perfection. And those perfect moments that everyone's waiting for, they don't come with sirens and flashing lights, they just pass by quietly. That's why the true investment strategy is boring. It's showing up every month. It's not checking your account during downturns. It's ignoring the noise and trusting your system. That's where real financial freedom begins. Not with flashy stock picks, but with habits that work even when you're not looking. Still, people chase complexity. They think the answer must be something exotic or elite. But what if the real secret isn't in sophistication, but in simplicity? What if you could build wealth with a plan so basic it's almost boring? There's a dangerous myth that smart investing requires complex strategies, advanced tools, or insider knowledge. But the truth is far simpler and more liberating. The wealthiest long-term investors often stick to the basics: low-cost index funds, consistent contributions, and time. That's it. No rocket science, no crystal ball, just discipline. In fact, most of the complexity people chase ends up hurting them. High-fee funds, active trading, and jumping on trendy stocks usually backfire. It's like trying to win a marathon by sprinting. You burn out before you finish. Meanwhile, the guy jogging at a steady pace, he crosses the finish line without breaking a sweat. That's the investor who wins. Look at John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard. His legacy isn't built on brilliance, it's built on simplicity. He told people to buy the whole market, hold it forever, and stop checking their phones every 5 minutes. Millions followed his advice, and many retired wealthy because of it. That's the power of keeping it simple. So what can you do? Automate your investing. Choose something like a target date retirement fund or a total market ETF. Set it and forget it. Don't chase hot tips or watch CNBC every day. Just focus on what works: consistency, low costs, and time in the market. The formula may not sound sexy, but it works like magic over decades. But even if your strategy is airtight, there's still one wild card you can't ignore: the world itself. Politics, war, and power plays can shake everything. So before you exhale, we need to zoom out and ask, what's really going on globally? Let's get real. The idea of World War III is terrifying. And with headlines swirling around tensions between superpowers, it's easy to think we're teetering on the edge. But here's a grounded take. Most major powers are too distracted at home to wage a global war. Russia is stretched thin. China's economy is wobbling. The US? It's in election chaos. Everyone's dealing with internal fires. That doesn't mean we ignore the risks. It means we interpret them with wisdom. Geopolitical drama always rattles markets, but rarely delivers the doomsday scenarios we imagine. During the Cold War, people built bunkers in their backyards. Meanwhile, the market kept climbing, because uncertainty breeds paranoia, but time exposes reality. Smart investors monitor global events, yes, but they don't base their whole financial plan on fear. They diversify, they build buffers, they focus on what they can control. And most importantly, they don't sell everything at the first sign of trouble. That's not strategy, that's surrender. Now, if war does escalate, there are protective plays: defense stocks, commodities like gold, and cash reserves. But even those are just short-term hedges. The real power lies in being ready to buy when others are too scared to act. Because no matter how dark things seem, markets always look forward, not backward. And that's why this conversation matters more than ever. Because while the world debates what's next, your financial destiny is quietly being shaped behind the scenes. So the question becomes, how will you respond? Now it's your turn. After everything you've just seen, are you going to sit back and hope things get better? Or are you going to act like your future depends on it? Because it does. Financial security isn't something you wish into existence. It's something you build, especially when the world around you is falling apart. Ask yourself this: What would your life look like if you actually had a rock-solid investment plan? No panic, no guesswork, just confidence, even during a financial crisis. Would you sleep better? Would your family feel safer? Would you finally stop living paycheck to paycheck and start creating financial freedom that lasts? If the answer is yes, then stop waiting for permission. Start implementing. Go back through this video, take notes, take action. Automate your investments. Avoid panic selling. Focus on long-term investing. Use dollar cost averaging. And more importantly, stay in the game while others are running scared. Leave a comment below and tell me, what's the one move you're going to make today to protect your money? I want to know. Let's build a community of people who aren't just reacting, but rising. If this video opened your eyes, imagine what else you'll discover in the next ones. So don't forget, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stick around, because this is just the beginning. Together, we're not just surviving. We're learning how to make money, build an online business, and reclaim control. No matter what the headlines say,